I mean, I was really shocked to see you say when you posted your video that you were more scared on that ship than you were covering or working on a Ebola outbreak in Africa.
I felt much safer when I was in Africa. I was surprised to see the mixture of the dirty zone, we call it the red zone, and the green zone, which is a clean zone, free of virus. There's virus-free environment, so you could do any kind of work there. But they didn't do it. They just kept being inside a cruise ship and having a halfway protected and halfway unprotected, and that's the most dangerous way of dealing with the infectious disease epidemic. No other way, so I said, well, I have to do it. I looked into the several places inside the ship, and turned out that the cruise ship was completely inadequate in terms of the infection control. There was no distinction between the green zone, which is free of infection, and the red zone, which is potentially contaminated by virus. So the people could come and go wearing a PPE, off PPE. Crews were just walking around, and the officers of Ministry of the Health and Labor was walking around. DMAT people were walking around. Psychiatrists were walking around. And the people were eating on one place. People were wearing PPE and off PPE and eating lunch with the gloves on, and just dealing with the smartphone with full PPE, so it was completely chaotic. And some crews had a fever. They went to the medical center while wearing an N95 mask, but he didn't have any protection between his room and the medical room, and the medical officer was not protecting herself, and she was very unhappy, saying that well, she was already infected, I'm sure about that, so she was completely giving up protecting herself. Anyways, I dealt with a lot of infections, more than 20 years, and I was in Africa dealing with the Ebola outbreak. I was in other countries dealing with the cholera outbreak. I was in China in 2003 to deal with SARS, and I saw many febrile patients there. I never had fear of getting infection myself for Ebola, SARS, cholera, because I know how to protect myself and how to protect others and how the infection control should be. But inside Princess Diamond, I was so scared. I was so scared of getting COVID-19 because there was no way to tell where the virus is. No green zone, no red zone. Everywhere could have virus and everybody was not careful about it. There was no single professional infection control person inside the ship, and there was nobody in charge of infection prevention as a professional. It was reasonable, and I never yelled at anybody, and I never criticized anybody personally, but I was trying to be constructive, but they tried to seek the constructive but immediate improvement to protect everybody inside the ship. But apparently my rank was removed by somebody, and nobody said who, but I was out. And the officer who offered me the job of infection control said he was sorry. Then I asked him, so what do you want to do? Do you want to infect everybody in the ship? It will be thousands of people who could potentially get COVID-19, and only the bureaucrats were doing the jobs, completely layman's work, and violating all the infection control principles, and risking people inside further infections. I wish all the international bodies to request Japan to change. I wish everybody to call for protection of people inside the Diamond Princess. Otherwise, there will be far more infections for passengers, for crews, for DMAT members, for psychiatrists, for officers of the Ministry of Health and Labor. DMAT members consist of nurses and doctors, and they will go back to their hospitals they work routinely, and they might infect their patients further to spread and the disease. I can't bear with it. I can't bear with it. I was surprised to see the mixture of the dirty zone, we call it the red zone, and the green zone, which is a clean zone, free of virus. Because this is the first thing we do in infection control measures everywhere in the world. You deal with Ebola, you deal with SARS, then you have to distinguish between where the virus doesn't exist and where potentially the virus could exist. And I was so scared that anybody could have a virus and everywhere could be contaminated by virus. And so I got shocked and I was scared of having an infection inside the cruise ship. And I'm scared of developing a disease in the next couple of days.
And how would you go about setting up a green zone and a red zone in a cruise ship?
The easiest way is to put everywhere in a cruise as red zone. So you can remove every headquarters, which is inside the cruise ship right now, to outside the cruise ship. There's virus-free environment, so you could do any kind of work there. But they didn't do it. They just kept being inside the cruise ship and having a halfway protected and halfway unprotected, and that's the most dangerous way of dealing with the infectious disease epidemic.
I mean, I was really shocked to see you say when you posted your video that you were more scared on that ship than you were covering or working on an Ebola outbreak in Africa.
I felt much safer when I was in Africa because you know where the virus doesn't exist and you know where the patient is and you know there's a clear distinction between the red zone and green zone. So you had to take extra caution for fighting against Ebola, but still you know what you are fighting against and where you are fighting. But inside the Diamond Princess, you have no idea where the virus is. So you have no way to say where you have to fight and where you don't have to fight.
We're seeing people disembarking from the ship and walking out of the gate, getting on buses and going home and mixing with the general population.
Yes.
How concerned are you by that?
Very concerned. Very concerned because you have no idea whether they got the infections between May the 5th until today. If you got that viral infection yesterday, then it has to be another 14 days of isolation you have to have, including myself.
The government and the health ministry would say that all of these people who are being allowed off the ship have been tested and have tested negative, so they are safe. Is that not the case?
That's completely a misunderstanding of the use of the test. The genetic test is not perfect, particularly when you are asymptomatic, not having a symptom at all. Then the viral load is small and you might have a virus lower inside the airway, then the test could be falsely negative. Later on, the viral infection appear, then you might be infectious and you could be symptomatic. So the testing asymptomatic people to guarantee the lack of or absence of infection is completely a wrong idea. It is scientifically wrong and logically wrong.